It's beginning to look a lot like WrestleZone. How you doing, everybody? It's a Wednesday night. AEW, NXT. We're covering them all. Omega gets hardcore. NXT delivers maybe one of the best matches of the year. What shirt are you wearing there? Are you wearing your See You in Hell shirt, John Clark sporting? I got my Macho Man. We got all the wrestling merch out there tonight. You want to get some merch? We have it for you at WrestleZone.com. Go get some shirts there as well. Some fun ones. What's going on, everybody? If you're watching this video on demand or live, go ahead and get in the comments. If you're on demand, don't worry. We're still reading your comments as well. Live viewers, get your comments on screen with us live right now. And if you want to check out even more, can't listen to the whole thing, can't watch the whole thing, get on the podcast. WrestleZone podcast up now. A lot of fun stuff to cover. Obviously, AEW getting a crazy bit of action off their big ratings last week. Did they keep that momentum going? How did NXT get going here with New Year's Evil, basically a pay-per-view on TV coming up here the first week of January? So much to cover. Both shows are going to be taking kind of a weird diversion next week. You're going to have NXT doing some different stuff with the Slammies going on. And then you have also AEW getting preempted by the beginning of NBA basketball. Weird time for NBA to start with, obviously, the pandemic continuing. They want to make sure this new season gets going, so they're kind of getting bumped by that. We do also have some big baby news to talk about. We have some great baby news. Congratulations to Cody Rhodes and Brandy, who made that announcement on air tonight. We'll get into all these different things. But the thing you can do is hit that like button. All right, here we go. I'm going to count down to 3, and you hit that like button. Now, everyone watching right now, you just do one little simple thing for this show that you're watching for free. 1, 2, 3, like. There you go. Boom. There you go. You touch the screen. John Clark gets it. Let's get right into it. John Clark, AEW. We'll cover them first. We got a lot to cover with NXT. That Pete Dunne, Kyle O'Reilly match. It was a barn burner, wasn't it, dude? We'll talk about that, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Let's get right into it. AEW, the main event is Kenny Omega versus the one unfinished thing in his illustrious run towards the title of the Eliminator tournament. That was Joey Janela. Joey Janela not really featured much on AEW television. He had some possible COVID exposure that pulled him out of the Eliminator tournament. So that kind of set this up, or at least the reasoning behind it. It was a no DQ AEW Eliminator match. So if Joey Janela won this, he would get a shot at the title. Don Callis from Impact Wrestling comes out with him. They've been collaborating the past few weeks. He's not on commentary. They wouldn't let him on commentary. So he took over the mic and put himself on commentary for the fans. And there was a lot of hardcore action. There was people going through tears. There was someone getting hit with a disgusting cookie sheet, as Don Callis put it. And Kenny Omega wins this one with a one-winged angel, even though he got put through a table, even though he took all this different damage. He could still find a way to win and get past all of it. Kenny Omega sends Joey Janela back down the ranks of AEW. This was a spectacle. I don't know what it did, but certainly quite the week for Kenny Omega. He was on both the AAA Triple Mania show, an amazing match, maybe one of the best matches of the year that I've seen. Him and Laredo Kid, just absolutely fantastic. Felt like a Tokyo Dome match. This paled in comparison to that. This was fun, but this was just plunder, chairs, and a one-wing angel, and more Don Callis doing his thing. It was fine. You know, they've had better matches. Like Joey Janela and Kenny Omega, I think, had the first match on AEW Dark when they started that. And that was a wild one. Wild week for Kenny Omega. What do you think of him as the AEW World Champion so far?
Well, I think that this is what they intended to do with him when they first signed him, to make him be that big person that you see all over. I mean, you're watching Tuesdays, you're watching Wednesdays, you're watching Sundays, and you see Kenny Omega. He has the AEW Championship now. That's exposure for that. And maybe they just wanted to wait till the show was up for a year to see how the success was, and then cash in on Kenny Omega. And no matter what they're doing, I mean, it doesn't matter. It's successful when they have Kenny Omega. And now that he's heavily involved with the upcoming video games, surely this is going to help that also. So he's turning into that, dare I say, company man that can be,
Well, he is an EVP. He's an executive.
Well, yeah. So I mean, it's like he's one of those people that like, I'm going to be honest, when a lot of people see somebody like, say, Rusev, they still think, WWE sometimes. But Kenny Omega is going to be that guy that when you see him, you instantly are going to think, AEW. He's going to be that guy. And even for Cody Rhodes, I mean, you could even see Cody Rhodes and people still think WWE. I mean, it just happens.
If you're with us live, go ahead and give us that 1 to 10 on AEW NXT, both shows. If you just watch one, only give us 1. Don't try and give us the rating for a show you didn't watch. I've seen people try and do that before. All right. I got to see a little bit of both, and I'll chime in about NXT, but I was on AEW duty. This was a fine main event. There were a lot of things on this show, I'll say this, that were just fine. There's nothing super barn burner, absolutely fantastic, shoot me to the moon, even with this wild main event, which was a hoot and a holler. But we mentioned Kenny Omega here. He did make some news. Do want to talk about this before the end of the night. He appeared on Impact yet again. This is the 3rd week in a row that he's been on Impact here, and he was on the Final Resolution special that they had on Saturday night, so he was on that at the same time. He was doing Triple Mania. I was watching both. And a match has been made. We are officially going to get Kenny Omega in an Impact ring, not in singles action. He will not be taking on Rich Swann, as some people thought they were alluding to, the Impact World Champion. No, Impact still getting the rub here, getting insulted by AEW commentary tonight and during that paid ad. Tony Schiavone saying that they increased their viewer from 1 to 6 people, which was I guess that's a rub for Impact that they're going for.
I mean, the formula adds up because it was like 50,000, and then they pretty much lost all those 50,000 this week.
Yeah, so was that a 1-week experiment in terms of what the audience wanted to give them? So, but the match has been made. Hard to Kill, their upcoming pay-per-view event. This will not be an Impact Plus event. This will be on traditional pay-per-view. It'll be Kenny Omega teaming with his old Bullet Club buddies, getting the gang back together with Omega, Gallows, and Anderson, the Good Brothers, taking on Rich Swann and the Motor City Machine Guns. Pretty cool match they just made there on paper.
Yeah, and I agree with a lot of the comments I've been seeing around social media, and that would be Impact has a lot of faith in Rich Swann. It's interesting to me how he went from pretty much a jobber on the WWE Cruiserweight 205 Live division to literally being Impact's like main player in a span of what, 2 years.
Title, didn't he? I think he
Okay, yeah, but that was a short period of time. Most of his time there was, behind TJP, behind Brian Kendrick, stuff like that. And to see where he's come and him being featured in a match like this, I just think they must have a lot of faith in him.
Interesting here, a couple of comments, people expecting some of the Good Brothers to show up on Dynamite tonight. They did not.
I think they will eventually, though.
I do think at least before Hard to Kill they will. I think there'll be something there. You'll see some back and forth there. It's interesting to say the least. Other things to cover here on AEW. The big news coming out of the night, probably bigger than any of the matches, was the announcement made by Cody Rhodes and Brandy. They had a fun little video backstage, or at home rather. And they reveal a gift at their doorstep. They reveal a little Gucci box. It's baby boots, a baby coming for them in 2021. Fun little announcement. Good for them. Exciting news. A lot of big baby news recently in wrestling. You had Jon Moxley and Renee Paquette announcing they're having a baby on the way. So a lot of baby news in AEW. Good for them. And I think everyone's already going to say, what are you going to name the kid? Is it going to be a spin on Dusty? I already saw people saying that. I was like, that's ridiculous. Just let this couple have
it depends on the gender, and we don't even know how long she's been pregnant. All kinds of stuff like that.
That's also worth noting because last week, they were building to a match of some kind, or at least teasing some type of physical confrontation between Brandy and Jade Cargill, who broke her arm. And Jade Cargill was going to have Shaquille O'Neal of NBA fame kind of come in as the celebrity element outside the ring. That's where everyone thought this was going. And then this week they're announcing that she's having a baby.
Maybe it is brand new news.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if that's something exactly planned, but here we are. Definitely a way that it is going here. And other people commenting, William T. Wade just gave me AEW a 7, gives NXT an 8. Continue to give us your feedback here. Michael, not feeling too much of either show. He gives them a 6 and a 6.5 to NXT. And we'll give our ratings. Don't worry. Are all important. Are definitive. There is no other ratings. These are the only ratings that matter, are coming up within the show. Plus news. You can use news that will leave a bruise coming up before we get off air tonight about the WWE Hall of Fame. WWE Hall of Fame news coming up within the show. We'll touch on that. some interesting news and what could be the future of the WWE Hall of Fame. A very, very physical future for it as well. Continue to chime in on the conversation here. Cody Rhodes in action against Angelico. Fine match. Like I said, very, very fun physical back and forth match here. A lot of submission maneuvers by Angelico. They noted that his background from Lucha Libre submission was emphasized quite a bit. But Cody hit that Cody Cutter. Have you seen this Cody Cutter where someone has to stand in the middle of the ring and then he has to get to the top rope to jump and give them a cutter? It's a fun finisher. But I've always thought, the Crossroads was a better finisher for him. Don't you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. Maybe they just wanted something fresh. I mean, it's kind of, interesting to think about the reasoning behind everything, but I don't think it's anything bad.
6-man tag action. Adam Page and the Dark Order, who have been pursuing him quite a bit, all came out in little cowboy masks. Yeah. Little goofy stuff here. They took on Matt Hardy and Private Party, the Hardy Party, if you will. Matt Hardy coming in and stealing the win for the Private Party in this one. Fine little match. Nothing super fantastic. Like I said, nothing really felt like it was getting out of the gates in terms of just rough bang 'em up action. Everything just kind of felt like it did its job. Maybe a little bit of dissension here with Private Party, but we have dissension in enough groups here. Don't know what you're doing here with Private Party, but you needed to get Matt Hardy back on track and get him back in the mix, didn't you? Because it's been rough goings for him in AEW.
Yeah. What do you think? I mean,
a lot of injuries, different injuries, different setbacks. Had a fun, momentous match at the last pay-per-view. I thought that was fine. Other people telling us that they thought Dunn versus Kyle O'Reilly was a great match. Oh, yes, it was. And we will talk about that as soon as we can. Some people calling it match of the week already. And worth talking about here. Something else to cover. That Cody and Angelico match. I know we're bouncing around here unchronologically. We were promised Sting, and we were going to get Sting regularly on TV.
Well, you did.
And this is Sting's third appearance for AEW on television, and we got to see him. After the Cody match, Taz came out, cut a promo saying, we're going to put you on paternity leave right now. Darby Allin up in the wings. He won't be able to get down there to save the day. Team Taz dispatched to the ring his goons to take out Cody, only for Sting's music to hit and for him to point a bat at people. It's 3 weeks in. It was interesting. You're shaking your head. It was interesting. But here's the thing. No physicality from Sting. Nothing that makes you think he's going to have a match. Now, we reported last week that it looks like Sting will indeed have some type of role in physical matches, and he will wrestle, and he will compete. To what level that will be, singles matches, we don't know. There's still a man who had spinal stenosis in the ring, pretty serious, in his 60s, up there. I don't think AEW wants a very serious injury on their hands, and he was forced to retire in WWE. And he was already in a limited role there. So it's worth noting here, as we look at these things here, Sting, third week in, I'm not saying I didn't like it, but I didn't love it. And this is the third week in, and everything about Sting should feel super, super special. And 3 weeks in, it just felt like he's a guy coming out and he's appearing. It didn't feel like, oh my God. Like 2 weeks ago, that was, oh my God. And it's like, here's Sting. Like it should still feel like, oh my God, it's Sting. We didn't get, we got, hey, it's Sting. Hey, isn't Sting still, like, I'm not taking anything away from it because it's going to be awesome when he's in the ring. And it looks like they're going to build to some type of 6-man tag match of some kind with him. And it'll be him, Darby, and Cody versus Team Taz. Sounds like a pretty cool match. I could be into that. If you're going in that direction.
You nailed it on the head with what you said with that. It's a combination of two things. One, AEW is trolling us, trolling the fans. Two, AEW is potentially misusing him. Now, why do I say that? I say that because, and I am going to be that guy because somebody has to be that guy. If another company brought somebody in, brand new, no, let's just for example, let's just say Goldberg. So WWE
they bring in a big star that that already has
built Goldberg back, and they say like this is what they did with Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was going to be on TV regularly. After 2 weeks, he was doing stuff like Sting did tonight, and what was the reaction from fans? This is horrible. This sucks. They're misusing him. They lied to us. Well, okay, so why aren't we hearing that about Sting? Because I mean, it clearly seems to me that's what's going on here. They're using his name to seem like a big deal, but they're not actually really featuring him on the show. He was on there, what, a grand total of what, 15 to 20 seconds on the show tonight?
Yep, just came out, pointed the bat, didn't cut a promo.
And
Mind you, short and sweet for Sting. Sometimes when he doesn't talk, it's compelling. He's one of those guys where he doesn't have to say a lot to do a lot, right?
But literally on AEW's Twitter and Facebook, the main frame, like their cover photo for the show was Sting in AEW. Tonight, he'll be there. And he was there for like 20 seconds. Like, come on. It's just annoying. I mean, you might be okay with it, but to me, it's like it can bring out the hypocritical
And also, it
side
felt
of
like a
fans.
repeat of the first week,
Yes.
where it was him coming to save the day. He did, he came out there with a bat and threatened people, and they kind of like stood off with him. Hobbs kind of stepped up to him and then backed off, and that was about it.
Yeah. And I know we're still early in talking about the shows tonight, and I want to mention that I do think that we kind of get back to reality a little bit, and I don't think we're going to see AEW sniffing that 1 million number tonight. I think we're going to get back to reality where they're both going to kind of go back down a little bit, and especially next week with NBA starting back up, we might not get near 1 million.
I do feel bad for AEW because they get such good momentum going, and they have such a great number going into the Christmas holiday here.
And now they're going to get pushed back.
And then they're going to get preempted. And that's nothing against them. That's doing business with a TV company that has a sports deal, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, they'll still do good numbers. They'll probably get around 700,000-800,000 still. But.
And that's going on late at night. I think the interesting thing, we talk about ratings and all these different things. What is NXT going to do unopposed?
Well, yeah, let's just hope that. Well, I mean, they are opposed to the basketball game, and one thing that AEW needs to watch out for, if the basketball game were to run over into 10 o'clock, that might shy away some fans because they'll tune in at 10 o'clock and they'll be like, well, this ain't AEW, this is basketball. But at the same time, they might retain some of those basketball fans to stay and maybe check out AEW and see what it's all about. But
I can tell you what I'm going to be doing. I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to be here. You know where I'm going to be? I'm going to be on air for 101 WKQX. And I'm going to be watching something else. And that something else is the concert event of the year, the virtual Night We Stole Christmas for 101 WKQX. Go get your tickets at 101WKQX.com. It's going to be Glass Animals, Wallows, Cold War Kids, and special guests. Special guests. If you love music, you want a diversion from wrestling just for a night, this is a great event. $1 from every ticket going to volunteermatch.org and their Project Shine effort to connect people with great charities going into 2021. We're going to need that. Your community is going to need more charity work. People are going to have to step up and fire up and get society reeling and rocking again. All right. And if you want to do it, fun thing for the holidays, maybe you're wrapping up the presents. Maybe, hey, I might feel wrestling. I can watch AEW NXT another night. I don't care about NBA. This is a great option. You love rock and roll. You miss the concerts. This is a great option. 3 great bands. And those surprises, let me tell you, you will see them trending. You will see people talking about this. It'll be something else. 101WKQX.com. I'll be on air for them. Looking at
it's interesting that you say what will they do unopposed to AEW, because they did reveal tonight that next week the theme will be a very Gargano Christmas. So
that's NXT next week.
That's NXT next week, 8 to 10. So I mean, I take it AEW is on a different time next week, so our wonderful viewers probably won't see us next Wednesday night, since
we'll figure out a way to do smaller content and different things in the afternoon. We may not have a full-fledged. I'll have a couple of news / videos and different stuff like that. So people that follow us in the video feeds, don't worry, you're still getting stuff from us.
This is essentially the last basically week of programming until the next 2 weeks are kind of like holiday shows, iffy. And then we got New Year's Eve on January 6th.
Yeah. So then we're right there. And that's kind of the way AEW is treating it as well. Like they're going to have to deal with different.
The next 2 weeks are kind of like almost like a filler show.
Yeah. That's what I'm getting at. This show, it felt fun. It felt like they keep some things active. They tried to give you a little bit more spectacle in some stuff. Some storylines kept developing. Like we saw SCU with Frankie Kazarian and Christopher Daniels versus the new breakout team of the Acclaimed. All right. Now, this is a fun match. This is actually one of the better matches they had tonight. A lot of back and forth action. Christopher Daniels and Kazarian are still some of the best tag team wrestlers in the world. But Christopher Daniels, he and the SCU came into AEW with a lot of hype. And I think that team, which was the first tag team champions they've had, don't feel as formidable as they once were. And that's fine. Some teams have to go down for other teams to go up. But it's weird to see Christopher Daniels, who was at one time one of the best wrestlers in the world, is not recognized as that anymore. And almost like they're playing it, and this is something they were doing before, that the age has caught up with them. And they played in the story. It's one of the more interesting, quiet stories of the night here. And he took the pin. Acclaimed wins. Acclaimed has been talking trash to the Young Bucks, so this really set them up. They used a boombox to hit Daniels over the head with it, because Zeri was upset with him. So maybe they're going to break up and something's going to happen there. But I tweeted out that I feel like Yuji Nagata, one time one of the top guys in New Japan for years now, has just been used as a beloved guy that you like, who's going to come out there, he's going to lose. And I worry, are they sending Christopher Daniels in that direction? It's almost a story into itself. But Bowens and Caster, the Acclaimed, they are now set up to take on the Young Bucks next week. Fine little build. Nothing super fantastic, but doesn't make me feel like this team's going to beat the Young Bucks.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. It's not going to be anytime soon. I mean, they're definitely going to have a match with the Good Brothers at some point, and they're probably going to have the titles at that point. So nothing unpredictable here, I would assume. Do you agree?
Yeah, we also had some with promos. There was an issue with promos, but we had another thing. A lot of tag team matches tonight. Maybe a little bit too many tag team matches tonight, because we had Ivelisse and Diamante versus Big Soul and Serena Deeb. Fun match, solid. Serena Deeb and Big Soul pick up the wins. I don't think AEW has fond ideas of what the future could be for Ivelisse and Diamante. They've lost quite a bit on tag team matches in the past. And Deeb and Swole, maybe they're the direction they're going in for the NWA Women's Championship. Thunder Rosa cut a promo. She got attacked by Britt Baker, so that's going down the line. So AEW doing a better job with their women. They're definitely going in the right direction. Nothing with Abaddon and the AEW Women's Champion Sheeta tonight, but in terms of what they did with the other women, I'm into it. Thumbs up on that stuff. Issue I did have, though, promos. We had the big 14-man tag team match. This went up head-to-head with, which I thought was maybe the match of the night overall over on NXT with Kyle O'Reilly and Pete Dunne. And this one was all over the place. There's too much going on in this match. And maybe Jericho got to have a little bit of shine with Brian Pillman Jr. in this. But there's too many guys in this. Jake Hager tried to hit an F10, Wardlow's finisher. It's kind of like, the Inner Circle's not getting along. Look how they're not getting along. And MJF was able to sneak in and get the win for his team. And look what he did for the Inner Circle. So they're still going to break up that team. I don't know when Inner Circle is going to break up. So it's just a lot of people, a lot of different things. That didn't connect. Later on in the night, the Acclaimed have their win. After the match, they cut a promo, and they bring up the menstruation cycle and of women, and they allude that the Young Bucks are cucks. All right, so I was like, all right, that's a little bit cheap heat. And they went a little bit cheaper. They said bitches. So they said bitch. Literally 90 seconds later, Top Flight cuts a promo, and they're calling out people. And I don't even remember who they called out. No, they called out Jericho and MJF, right? Because they were in that big 7-man match. And then they called them bitches. And I'm just like, you just had 2 promos in a row with a big exclamation point. The high spot verbally was bitch. All right. So I was just like, this is one of those things that keeps coming up with AEW all the time is there's some things where you see it like who's guiding the ship here, guys? Like someone didn't tell them, don't say bitch because we have bitch coming on like 60 seconds after you. I'm quoting, by the way. You two don't get mad at me here. It felt like, come on, put a little gauge on this thing. Reel this thing in here. Those are the big points out of this week's AEW. It was a fine show. It's not the worst wrestling show I've ever seen. It was more compelling than some wrestling shows I've seen this week. And I'm going to say this is a solid show, but definitely didn't feel momentous. It felt like if I wanted to clip over to NXT and I wasn't just covering it, I could. And I could catch up on this later. This could have been the show that I taped. I'm not saying thumbs down. I'm giving this week's AEW a solid 6.7. 6.7. I do think the next few weeks are going to be a lot more compelling for the show. I do think they need to remind you that Sting's going to do something more than just come out and point his bat at somebody. But the matches they have coming up are cool. I do think Kenny Omega is an interesting champion. It wasn't the worst show. They did do a whole lot. They did some FTR cut a great promo on a night of very meh promos, So it's not all bad. I just felt like this is just, hey, we know we're going to get bumped by the NBA next week. That's what made me think they were going to have a little bit more of a bigger show. Stay with us. We're going to be there next week. Let's get into comments that people had here before we jump over to NXT, who had a fantastic night. James Espanto Fernandez. There you go. He knows all the hand motions here. James Espanto with us all the time. Says big cap. John, wrestling tongue twister. Can you say 3 times? Sting, stun, sour sap singers. 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 Boom. Beat it. Tongue twist it. All right. There we go. I did it. I don't mind a good tongue twister. Keep bringing them, baby. Keep bringing them tongue twisters live on the show. Over on NXT, they had a solid show. They had a solid show tonight. From what I got to catch, I did watch during some commercial breaks. I did have a double screen thing going on until my ADD was too overloaded. Let's get right into this. This Kyle O'Reilly, Pete Dunne match. Winner gets to face Finn Balor at New Year's Evil, their on-TV special show coming up January 6th. And they get to see Finn Balor versus the winner of this match. They said this was going to be a big match. They said they were going to give you picture-in-picture. They said no commercial interruption, but we just still get commercials. So I did feel a little iffed by that. But these two guys beat the snot out of each other. Snap snootplexes, holding each other's hands and just jerking the guy's chest into the ring post. I saw that back and forth. I thought that was super creative. Brutality, as Wade Barrett, Stu Bennett put it, in-ring brilliance is what he called this. How good was this match? Because I got to catch a good chunk of it, and I almost felt like
And this should be noted that this wasn't even the main event of the night. This was the 9 o'clock hour match, the halfway match. This was, simply put, one of the best matches that NXT has put out all year. It was physical. It was brutal. Both men looked beat up in the end. These two might be the best 2 players in the game right now, let alone NXT, but just generally in wrestling.
Ray Garza is saying NXT better than AEW this week. Continue to chime in here, guys, in the discussion here. But give me more breakdown on this one, Clark.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think the goal here is Balor. They want Balor to prove that his win over O'Reilly was legitimate because, I mean, they were both injured the first time, so let's put them together again. The match was absolutely brilliant the first time, so hey, let's put it on free TV and, let's take the rating. So, but Dunn was very aggressive. O'Reilly returned the favor. Something you also want to see, very clean match, no interference. Just at the beginning, we had shenanigans before the bell rang with the
shenanigans.
return.
Favorite. You ever been to shenanigans? It's a super.
Yeah. The return of Breezango tonight, helping take out the tag team champions. We also had Killian Dane involved, and we had Undisputed Era there. The point of this was to get everybody wiped out backstage before the match could start. And that's what happened. And the match was easily top 3 of the year.
Yeah, and the fact that they did that early where, O'Reilly came out, he had an Undisputed Era with him. It could have turned into a faction thing. Oni and Lorcan came out with Pete Dunne. They were involved in War Games, and then quickly they eliminated that. With all the other teams coming out and making it down to these 2 guys, they turned it into a gun battle between, a showdown. And I like that because then it cut the noise out. And it was one of those things where sometimes I wish AEW would do that because they have so many individually talented guys that they get lost in this mishigash. And we got to make sure we get everyone on the show. There's some stuff I didn't even cover tonight. They're building to Pac and Eddie Kingston. They're building to Lance Archer being involved in that. That's some pretty cool stuff. But there's so many other guys going on with it. It kind of loses the dialed in-ness. It loses a bit of the focus.
Sure.
It's a little bit blurry and noisy. This was, let's cut to the meat. Let's get right to the steak.
Yeah, and a clean win, like I said, from O'Reilly. I was a little surprised myself because I thought they were going to have Pete Dunne and Finn Balor go at it. If we want to talk about surprises, I'm more surprised that they are not jumping right into Karrion Kross and Finn Balor. To me, Finn Balor is clearly going to keep this title until he can go against Kross. But nevertheless, the match should be absolutely brilliant. obviously will be the main event of New Year's Evil. Do you expect this match to be just as good as the first one?
I mean, the first one was brutal. I mean, if you want to talk about just really hard hitting stuff, maybe don't do that because you wouldn't break.
Yeah, I was gonna say tone it down a little bit this time.
maybe let's not break someone's jaw. And Kyle O'Reilly got hurt in that match too. I remember it was like an undisclosed upper body injury of some kind.
It was an elbow or shoulder or something.
Yeah, he got beat up pretty bad, and then Balor got his jaw wired shut from the thing. And getting your jaw wired shut's not maintain your look. You can't keep that body on smoothies alone. So I think it should be special that Balor is coming back with the title in this scenario. And this match should be treated as a special attraction, and it can be built up to like they tried, because in that situation, you went with Kyle O'Reilly because Cole was on the shelf. You just took the belt off him. You just put the belt on Balor. The plan was to put Cole on the shelf anyway, right? And then you had all those different issues, and then they had that takeover match, and it was great. And they were going in this direction, and all that fell apart. There's been a lot of like injuries that have messed up storylines for NXT. Now I'm seeing you got Cross back. Kyle's just right. You just had a great War Games. You can do a lot of different things with the tag teams. The tag teams in NXT feel more compelling than they have in some time. And now here is unfinished business between Balor and O'Reilly. And if you want New Japan style, these guys are going to beat the snot out of each other as hard as they can and put on a spectacle of a match between the bells. You're going to get one here. And Balor is due for some more of those because you haven't seen him in a long time. And when he was in the ring this year on TV, every time it meant something, especially when he started chasing the title. Win or lose, this is a match you need to see. This is a match you need to see right now. Now, mind you, they can mess that up. They can lose some of the luster of this in the weeks to come. It's happened, and sometimes the ball doesn't get across the finish line the same way it could.
Sure.
But if they keep it to O'Reilly and Balor and really just tone down the other elements, it could be cool. But I already have people saying, oh, this is just going to be a setup for something at a takeover they're going to do. We don't know the status of a takeover Royal Rumble weekend. Usually they tend to do that. But WWE has been getting away from that idea of doing an NXT pay-per-view with the same weekend as a WWE pay-per-view.
Yeah, as long as there's no fans anyway.
Well, they did do it at SummerSlam weekend, and they do it on the big quarterlies. They do. So Royal Rumble would be a time that you would want to do that. And I do think that's a time when the casual fans come back to the table and start looking at what WWE's doing. But with NBA on, and we don't know where football is going to land that weekend, it could be a different story, completely different story in early 2021. This New Year's Evil show, I really think is going to set up some things for a takeover, at least in January or February, and kind of set that track going there. But definitely, what other big things you want to talk about on NXT?
Well, for the third week in a row, we've had women featured in the main event. This time we get Rhea Ripley versus Toni Storm. These two obviously have history, NXT UK type history. They're both very good players in the ring, but they don't necessarily mesh together perfectly. This has been one of the complaints that they have said about these two together in the past. Their styles are kind of different. They clash. They don't really fit together, but they've both been improving on their own separate paths. They come together tonight, and it was a very good match. Toni Storm won. There was some screwiness at the end with Raquel Gonzalez again getting in the way of Rhea Ripley. These two already had an excellent match at Halloween Havoc, and these two will likely have another match at New Year's Evil. I'm talking Raquel Gonzalez versus Rhea Ripley. What do you think about the possibility of us seeing that match again?
It was interesting that they went with the women to end this show, but I do think it was a smart move by them to put on a singles match while AEW had this big, noisy multi-man match, which was fun and effective. The AEW one was cool, but this one was completely different. And then on top of that, to go with the women at the end. Women have been a strong
again.
The women have been a very, very strong delivering card for them to play overall. And I thought this was a smart move. Rhea Ripley is still someone who has a lot of momentum, even though people say that she lost a lot since WrestleMania. I still think there's a lot you can do with her, and even her winning here. I don't know if I'm buying Toni Storm though as a heel, but Rhea versus Raquel. They've done it on TV before. They had a great match. It's really brought up the stock of Raquel Gonzalez. Two big Amazon women. There's something different and unique about that for presenting women. And I still think maybe you throw a gimmick on it. You put that on New Year's Evil. Could be something really cool.
Yeah, and I think it will be a good match. I mean, I think people forget Rhea Ripley is only 24 years old. Tony Storm is only like 25 years old, 24 years old as well. Like
They're vets, man. They've been around the world.
These are up and coming superstars. They're the future of the WWE Women's Division, but they're like already at that level now. So imagine how good they'll be when they're possibly main eventing WrestleMania in 5 years. So I think it's perfectly acceptable to have them featured in the NXT's main event week after week after week. I want to get over and talk about the return of Karrion Kross to in-ring action tonight, because Karrion Kross did return tonight to have a match against Desmond Troy. This was
Tahiti Miles. Wasn't he wrestling under a different name before? Am I mistaking him for somebody else?
No, I think you're correct.
Okay.
But this was a 2-minute squash match. And Karrion Kross, I mean, it wasn't really like the most memorable way to bring him back into the ring, but it did the job. And Desmond Troy used to be Denzel Dejournette, if I'm saying that correctly. Denzel Dejournette. He was in NXT.
Dejournette. French words.
So, but yeah, it was a clean win for Kross. It was a submission. It was 2 minutes long. And we have a match made official for New Year's Evil, which we'll see Karrion Kross in action against Damian Priest. What do you think? These two have a similar gimmick, you might say, that kind of dark character type thing. I think this is going to be a very good match, but part of me is worried because Priest is probably going to take a clean loss here. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, because Karrion Kross, you've built him up so much, even with the injuries and different things like that. That guy, in terms of people that came into NXT with all the hype, delivered on it, and then had a very poorly timed injury. He got hurt in the match where he won the title. You had all these different Gaga things. You have Scarlett with him. You had that entrance, which people still think is very, very special. That's an entrance we've never seen with a big crowd. So I wonder what that entrance is going to be like with the crowd in front of it. It could be a real spectacle there.
Now, do you want to see Priest take Kross to the limit, though? Like, do you want it to be a very close match?
Yeah, do you want to take the bloom off the rose in terms of Karrion Kross being your Brock Lesnar, your guy who is just, yes, you can test
him. That's what Keith Lee did to him.
Yeah, but that was a title match, and Keith Lee's the world champion. That makes sense. You can't just mow over the champion unless you want to go the Goldberg route and just make it a shocking thing. I don't think you can do that in NXT. People tune in. They want to have great matches in big things. You can feed some people to Karrion Kross like they've been doing. Damian Priest can't take the loss because I think there is something about him in terms of his look. He has a larger than life look.
Well, I guess I should ask.
I could see him on Raw or SmackDown sooner than people think.
So I guess I should ask you this too. You do expect Priest to lose, right? Or do you think there's okay? I was going to say, do you think he could possibly win? But I don't think that's going to be. Kross is clearly going to be probably the next NXT champion, in my eyes.
I already saw a couple people texting, and I can't remember who. I'm sorry if I don't remember exactly who, but someone said they want to see Balor versus Kross. We were talking about it a few weeks ago.
Well, we will.
Balor is his title. I'm not saying it's going to be a foregone conclusion. He gets through Kyle O'Reilly. You know, that's another thing. You want to tell me about what match I think I can predict? I'm more confident in saying that Kross is going to beat Damian Priest than I am Finn Balor is going to go right through Kyle O'Reilly. Different story. But down the line, a Finn Balor Karrion Kross match is something I've heard on the lips of many a fan, and they want to see that happen.
We want to see Demon Balor too. Some people have been saying that. The question is, it
lends itself to the gimmickry and like the big entrance and him saying like he's the walking apocalypse, pulling out the demon as Finn Balor does. That's something where they protected it.
I think it has all to do with if there's going to be fans and how long do they want to wait. Because if they do want to wait till WrestleMania weekend, that's still over 3 months away yet. You know, you have to consider that. I mean, they haven't really built to this match yet, so they have time. But we only have about, realistically, a month and a half before we're going to know if there's any chance WrestleMania has fans. Because you can't just say 2 weeks before the event, we're going to have fans. You have to know beforehand.
In this day and age, maybe you could. You never know.
Yeah, because I would be there if it was a 1 week notice. But you get the point.
There's a real mad dash to get those tickets, huh?
Last thing memorable to NXT is actually what opened the show, and that was The Way, a stable consisting of Johnny Gargano, Austin Theory, Indy Hartwell, and Candice LeRae. They took on the team of Leon Ruff and Kushida, and Theory and Gargano brought home the win. This won't be a tag match that will be remembered for like really great in-ring action or back and forth, stuff, but they're continuing to make Leon Ruff look legit, and that's all that fans can ask for. And I think that one thing that we should point out is when Kushida was in the ring, he was getting the upper hand on the other two. But when Leon Ruff was in the ring, that's kind of when Gargano and Theory had their little moment. So this is clearly leading to Gargano and Kushida having a feud. Kushida's first real championship caliber feud. I think Gargano's perfect for it. He's a heel. He's good at it. He can kind of carry Kushida, being not really like a good talker, but at the same time a good in-ring performer. What's your thoughts on this? Kushida involved with the North American Championship, but Gargano having all this backup Theory, LeRae while she's on the shelf, stuff like that. What do you think?
Is Kushida in the position to have the momentum to take on a faction by himself? Usually that's somebody you go with that already has the fan momentum behind him. I'm not saying that Kushida, the big superstar you brought over from Japan, doesn't have the capability of doing that, but he was in the doldrums. There was word that Kushida didn't even have his own locker at the WWE Performance Center. I was like, that's ridiculous.
He hasn't been used very well.
And they've done some big victories for him recently, but he's had a lot of different injuries issues. I know there was an injury that put him on the shelf for a majority of 2020 this year, and he can come back. I do think he's one of those guys that could benefit from being paired with someone.
Like a manager, you mean, or like a partner?
Like a partner or a character that kind of like support him and second him in some way. But I do think he's one of those guys that could be really, really special.
Well, don't forget, he sent Velveteen Dream packing. We haven't seen it since.
Oh man, Velveteen Dream comes back. Don't worry, we're gonna hear about that on the internet. It'll be all there. But yeah, so I think Kushida, though, it's weird that he's in this position. It's interesting, and I wonder if Leon Ruff's gonna stay around and kind of help fend off all the bad guys outside the ring.
Yeah, because just trying to think off the top of your head who's somebody that they could put him with, it's almost like everybody already is doing something or everybody's already paired with somebody else, because some people were going to say, well, how about Drake Maverick? Well, he's with Killian Dane right now and they have their own thing going on. There's nobody really like similar level of Kushida that's kind of by themselves, not doing anything, that's also a babyface, because you got Cameron Grimes, but he's a heel. You got to kind of put stuff together and see what works. I think it could use a manager personally, just because the promo skills are there. There's certainly somebody that they could use. So we'll see where it goes. But I know you can't rate NXT. You didn't see the whole thing. Overall, though, what were your impressions of the show overall?
I got to catch Pete Dunne and Kyle O'Reilly. I did the double screen thing, which is just really, really hard for me to do. But I felt like this is special once it got going and they got other people outside the ring. That was amazing. That was a really, really great TV match. It's another reminder when people talk about, oh, Raw is such a chore. Raw is this. I don't like this. And da. I see those things. And I'm talking about the way people treat, I don't want to say the main Raw and SmackDown. There's things on Raw and SmackDown people don't like. SmackDown's a better show. Raw has some issues right now, sure. But when I see those things and people get online and they, for lack of a better phrase, bitch louder than they would cheer, I feel like come back to this. Come back to a match like this where you have these two studs just ripping up the track. You have two stallions going as fast as they can, as hard as they can. Characters that you believe could beat you up in a fight are beating each other up in the ring. And I know that sounds so simple, but sometimes it is that simple. When the noise online is so big, I look at a match like this and say, this is so cool, And AEW, same thing. People complain all these different things. Kyle, Kenny Omega is such a over character right now. He is such he's a parody of himself in some ways, which is interesting now. It's almost like he's a goofier version of the cool hand Luke that Roman Reigns is for WWE and SmackDowns with the Universal Championship, whereas he's outrageous and out there and look how over I am, and him kind of like goofing on his own things that got him over. Now, I'm liking that. That's starting to settle into a cool thing. It's making him a really cool character. Almost to the point where I don't have to have great matches. I just need to be Kenny Omega. It's kind of neat, you know? So when I see things that are really, really good on both shows, I just say, like, guys, just remember wrestling is really, really good. Considering that there isn't, when we get what we get on Wednesdays, and this is from both shows, we get some really, really great stuff. Really, really great stuff. With some great matches and great characters, and you want to see what they're going to do next. Overall, for the most part, some of the things don't hit, and I'm okay with that.
Well,
there was stuff that didn't hit tonight on AEW. There were some goofy things that caught from NXT tonight as well. But that Dunn O'Reilly match is a must see. It's a match where I just think because of the time of year that it came in, it won't be considered match of the year. It's right near the end of the year. But that's one of the better matches I've caught in a while. It's up there.
Yeah. We got another hot one tonight is all I can say. And
what's that rating, dude?
Let me tell you something, dog.
1 to 10. 1 to 10.
If you haven't watched this show, you got to check it out, dog, because that show was a 7.5. That was
7.5, dog. That's right. We're giving them American Idol ratings.
That's gonna be a 7.5 for me, dog.
That was a little pitchy, dog.
We got another hot one tonight.
All right, I gave
gotta watch. At least this match.
I gave AEW a 6.7 tonight.
Yep.
All right, and he gave the old NXT a 7.5. So it's pretty good out of 10. Let us know what you guys think of both shows. And chime in if you're watching on demand. We do have we mentioned SmackDown a little bit. They're getting a little preempted. They're getting preempted by some stuff going on with college football on Fox Network. So they're going to be on FS1 coming up on Friday. Hopefully that doesn't bump them too hard in the ratings. And on top of it, you're going into a holiday weekend too. We get a lot of people that are just taking next week off from work, even working from home. I'm hearing from this is the most I've heard from some people saying I'm taking a week off with sick days or, work leave or something like that. So I wonder how that's going to affect them going into this weekend.
Your inside sources have told you this news. I can, hey, look, this is going to be a risky move for me, but I'm going to do it anyway, just for James Esponto. As you all know, I am 6 for 6 and making bold predictions on this show.
Are you predicting the ratings cap that we get Wednesday into Thursday?
I am predicting that SmackDown on Friday will be under 1 million on FS1.
Just because they got moved from...
Just because they're on FS1, and the last 2 times they have been moved to FS1, they've pulled in about a 0.8 to a 0.85. Okay. I don't see them going over 1 million just because we are around the holidays. People probably will want to see Oregon and USC's football game. Let's see what happens, but look, I just... And that upsets me because the show is so good, and Fox treats them so right. But this is just something where, look, they're contractually obligated to do this game every year on Friday night, and they're not going to put the football game on FS1 because it's going to be a bigger draw naturally. So it's going to be under 1 million. But
NBA.
It's going to be under 1 million, and you know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen, right? We heard last week, about how AEW beat Raw, and we're going to hear this week possibly that, AEW beat SmackDown too. Well, guess what, people? It's on FS1. There's an asterisk. And
here's the thing. I'm not going to come out here a week from tomorrow saying, look how NXT
won't tolerate it.
I won't tolerate it. You're like a dad getting angry at his kids, driving his kids to their grandparents for Christmas, right? Knock it off. Quit talking about ratings back there. I'm going to turn this car.
Wrapping paper in the garbage bag.
What did you just say? What did you just say, John?
Put the wrapping paper in the garbage bag.
No Christmas this year. Could you kids keep mouthing off about ratings? Let's talk about the big news of the day. We've been teasing it the whole episode. WWE Hall of Fame. Always a debated subject. Who gets to go into the Hall of Fame? We're not talking about that. Ric Flair was recently in an interview and he made a notion very casually, because Ric Flair, he doesn't have to give. Rick does not need to have a filter. Just so you know, he's Ric Flair. He can say whatever he wants without impunity because he is Ric Flair. And that is still the same case here, as he revealed in this interview recently with The Jump on ESPN, just casually. WWE is actually in the process of building a Hall of Fame, a physical structure in Orlando. It's been delayed due to COVID-19. We've heard about this for a long time.
A couple of years.
More than a couple of years. I would say more than 10 years. This has been in some form of rumor being developed or being bought. I've heard some people theorize, but no one from the company say it whatsoever, that the Performance Center space was originally intended to be some type of Hall of Fame, but that really doesn't line up with where it is in Orlando. If WWE was to build a tourist destination type attraction, putting it in Orlando is a smart idea. You have people going there for Disney World. You have people going there for maybe they want to travel down. They want, if they're going to be around NXT, and they own land. They have, I believe they have another facility as well in Florida, not just the Performance Center. So they have real estate there.
They're taking over Orlando.
Take it over, right? And then I've heard other people theorize it's something they're going to do with one of the theme parks, which would be really, really exciting if they did that.
Like I'm more inclined. Hogan roller coaster.
Yeah, but if you do that, part of the thing is, though, when you do those, people think those are permanent. They're not actually permanent. Attractions at a theme park are not a permanent thing. You want to do it, you're watching us on YouTube, go look up Defunct Land, all the different theme park videos. It's videos all about attractions that used to be at big theme parks you went to that don't exist anymore.
30 to 40 years, and then they're gone.
Yeah, like there was the big movie ride, the King Kong confrontation and stuff like that. Those have been gone for 20 plus years. I do think it would be a mistake if NXT long run put this on in a theme park and they couldn't be there forever. Building your own thing and keeping it within the vicinity of somewhere near the theme parks, that's smart, but it could look small time though too. And I don't think any WWE wants to do anything like small or less than being paired with a major company like a Universal Studios,
sure,
or WWE with Disney. I see them more prominently, if they're going to choose one of those theme parks, they would go with Universal.
Yeah, and I think that just the concept itself is interesting to me. I think it would be something that's very cool, kind of puts you to that level of the NFL and the NBA and the MLB, like as a major player that has that physical Hall of Fame building you can go see. The idea is very interesting to me, and I really hope that it eventually comes to be something that, it's something that's on a wrestling fan's bucket list, like I went to the Hall of Fame or something, and it would be interesting. What do you think? I mean, I like the concept.
I think it'd be really, really cool. I mean, certainly WWE has, they're the number one brand in wrestling, whether or not people like to admit that.
Would you go at some point?
Yeah. I mean, I've always thought if it was a road show though, too, that would be something cool. I think they could do if they brought like all the different,
like how they have like the merch stand.
Yeah. And they've done that before, and if they did, that'd be a great way to do touring events without actually having to do crowds. If you want to do something transitional, and this is just us shooting off the top of our heads. Them being paired with a major museum would be cool. Them doing it as like an exhibition, if you want to do it for a little while, tied to a museum, tied to a theme park. Maybe you do it first at a theme park and then you build your own physical space. There's a lot of different options here, and they have a huge collection of stuff, of like physical things that you'd want to go and see. Ric Flair in the same interview saying they have one of my robes. You would want to go see one of Ric Flair's robes. You'd want to go see the Undertaker's caskets. They do that stuff at Access, and it's something you see fans talk about every year at WrestleMania, when WrestleMania was WrestleMania, and I think if we do hear about this, WrestleMania time is around the time you would announce something like that. and that your hardcore and casual fans would hear it when they're really tuned into what you're doing.
You announced it at the Hall of Fame ceremony that there's going to be a Hall of Fame, and everybody's going to get like the NFL, like they got their bus they're going to have. You know what I mean?
Oh, the trolls are here. Okay, cool. I'm always ready for you boys. And
oh boy,
whatever. Brush it off. Come on. If you're gonna come here, guys, you got to bring some thunder. You know what I mean? Don't just come and say R.I.P. insert letters. Come on. You actually gotta. If you're gonna roast. You can't microwave. Okay, we're gonna put this thing on the grill.
Raw's not dying.
Yeah, you're fine. Come on now. Try a little bit harder, buddy. This is one from Jim Verison. He says there was a rumor a while ago that it would be City Walk near Universal. I've heard that rumor before as well. And that they would replace an NBA attraction that was there. That was a collection of NBA collectibles and different things like that. I don't know which way to go. I think the long run is they build their own thing and it's in a cool spot, not just like that strip. You've been to Orlando, not like that strip of just like, here's the knockoff Disney merchandise stores, right? That doesn't say Disney on it. You don't want to be in that area because then you just look like, here, we're the cool thing on the knockoff block, right? Because there's a lot of that in Orlando. There's plenty of that, like within driving distance of where the theme parks are. You don't want that. But I think Universal would need them the most. Disney likes to own their IPs at this point. That is the business they are in. They own Marvel. They own everything they have. I can see Universal being much cooler with the idea of, all right, we're going to go do business. They did business with Marvel. They had Spider-Man for like, they still have it for a couple more years. So I could see them doing something with WWE first. If you're going to do it with one of the theme parks, that's where you go. But I think the cool thing would be if they built their own. Also, is there a better spot than Orlando? Would it be cooler to see this in like a New York City or Los Angeles or somewhere like that? Orlando's a pretty cool spot, but I don't see them doing it anywhere else than Orlando. I've heard a couple of people say, oh, do it in New York, do it somewhere else.
Let's do it in Chicago. What do you think?
I know, I wish, dude. I live here, but I don't think that's going to happen. I know better.
I'd like to do it in Miami, but
I think if we do get an announcement about it, it would be sometime in the next couple months. You know, with WrestleMania time, this would be a big announcement for them to make around that time of year. And whether or not we're actually going to have a Hall of Fame ceremony, that's worth talking about. What's going to happen with that? Definitely let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the show tonight. If you really, really enjoyed it, hit that like button. It takes you one click, and it really helps us defeat our biggest enemy, the giant algorithms. We have to pick that algorithm up above our head every single week, body slam it. So help us do that. If you're enjoying the show on the podcast, give us a review on whatever podcast app you have. Give us a 5-star review. Pass it on to your friends. Send the link to your friends as well. If they listen to wrestling podcasts, we're a great addition to that. We love having more listeners join the show. Give us your feedback about the show if you listen to it on demand at WrestleZone.com on the Twitter machine. You can follow me at Kev Kellum on the Twitter machine. John, where can we follow you?
John R. Clark 12.
And remember, when watching wrestling, the most important thing, we can argue about ratings. We can argue about who gets pushed.
See us on Sunday night.
Oh, we're going to be live. Thank you for remembering that. We're going to be live after WWE TLC on Sunday, and you can bitch about that show, but also when you're watching that show, before you watch the show, don't give it a rating before the first bell rings like many of you want to do. Just remember that you have to, you must, with all of your heart and soul, do this one thing when watching wrestling. John, I know you have a Christmas wish, and the one Christmas wish is this. What is it?
To enjoy all of the wrestling.